Welcome back, everybody, to the Aurora Show. I'm just going to do a little cosmic weather update today because I've gotten a lot of feedback from everybody, and of course, my own experience as well. With the past, I just think May as a whole, right? But definitely, in the past week, the energies are a little bit wonky, right? And so everybody's like, what's going on? Because it felt like April was obviously, we had the 7-planet stellium in Aries. So there was this huge boost of energy, right? Especially if you already have a lot of fire placements and stuff. There was this huge burst of energy. And then when Uranus entered Gemini on April 30th, it was as I said, I think in one of my last updates, it feels like everything is happening all at once, right? And so there was kind of this flurry of activity and change and new opportunities and new ideas and pivots and plot twists. And then, I'm not going to blame the full moon in Scorpio, but it was after that full moon in Scorpio, right, that happened on Beltane, May 1st. I think that full moon was a lot more potent than maybe anticipated, right? Now, I did talk about that full moon, and what I said was interesting about it, was that it was the first full moon in Scorpio that we had without an opposition to Uranus, right? And so I think there was a different tone to the full moon. It didn't feel intense on that day, maybe for some, but in the aftermath of it, the intensity was just there. I think psychologically, somatically, so much was being excavated and released, right? And so I think in a way I'm looking at it as Uranus is electric. Okay, Uranus is a lot of things. He is disruptive, okay? He is a rebel. He's also a genius. He pushes people outside their comfort zones. He is the spark of genius. He is the spark of revelation and epiphanies. He is the spark of miracles, right? Things happening out of the blue, and that can be interpreted as positive or negative, right? But there is a suddenness. There is a out of the blue, out of left field kind of vibe with Uranus, right? But Uranus also carries this energy of restlessness. There's a bit of restless energy and unsettledness when we're dealing with Uranus because he's very electric, okay? And because he's been transiting or was transiting in Taurus for 8 years, that entire area of our life, obviously, collectively, it's about resources and security and stability and just what I call the norm of life. The status quo, things that are normal is Taurus's realm, right? Individually in your chart, wherever that may be, that is where things that used to be normal, used to be foundational, used to be, consistent, all of a sudden went like this. And so we went on this roller coaster ride, right? But Taurus also rules the body. It's the body, the earth. It is the connection to the elementals. It is the connection to the real physicality of life, right? And so because Uranus was there for 8 years, it feels like there was actually a lot of restlessness and tension and honestly PTSD. I think there's a lot of PTSD with the collective since 2018 because we were really kicked in, our triggers and wounds around survival and scarcity and security and stability and our bodies and just feeling normal on any level was constantly being disrupted. It's we couldn't find comfort. We just couldn't feel normal. We often didn't feel comfortable in our bodies, right? And so this is going to become a conversation, which I'll do a totally separate video on, when Chiron enters Taurus on June 19th. That enters us into the collective healing of that PTSD. So when I talk about Chiron, I often use the term PTSD because I think it makes sense in our human experience, right? Yes, Chiron can indicate soul wounds, right? It's a place where it needs healing, right? There's something there that needs healing. It needs awareness. We need to sit with it. We need to be present with it. And we need to focus on healing in that area. And oftentimes I think this can come from previous life experiences, right? What we call past lives. But at the same time, it's very relevant to the PTSD that we acquire in this incarnation, in this human experience, right? It is basically trauma responses, okay? So on a collective level, when Chiron shifts, we address a different aspect, if you will, of the collective PTSD. And I think when Chiron enters Taurus, again, this will be a whole different conversation, but we're going to have to address those things. We're going to have to address the trauma and the PTSD and, the fight or flight reactions and the coping mechanisms and all of the things that we have developed, right? And a lot of it is coming off the back of Uranus and Taurus. So anyways, after this full moon in Scorpio, it felt like what's been coming up in our bodies, physically, emotionally, mentally, it might even not make sense, right? Like I personally had like a lot of triggers that didn't really make sense. It was like the external trigger was not something that would normally trigger me, if that makes sense, or like there really was no reason for myself to feel triggered. But I felt this sense of like incredible overwhelm in some moments, and things really, getting to me with that didn't make sense. And so I just think somatically that full moon in Scorpio really opened up this excavation of the nervous system, of things that have been living inside the body that we aren't even aware of, right? And all of that's coming to the surface. And so especially in the past week, I've had a lot of reports of people saying that they are all of a sudden exhausted, where we were, and I myself felt this too, because I was on a high, okay? April, I had so much energy, so much was going on all at once. I have a lot of like projects and things I'm working on. And so I was on a fucking roll, okay? I was doing 100 things at one time. I had the energy, I had the motivation. And then in the last week, it was like a crash. I felt so unmotivated, so tired, so exhausted, so stagnant. And a lot of other people have been feeling that. I've also had people reporting that they feel really like depressed, or just like everything feels heavy when it shouldn't, right? Or we were feeling this like electric go energy, and now all of a sudden we're like crashing out. And so I wanted to talk about that because I feel like it's a few things. For one, we do have a Taurus stellium right now. We are moving into the new moon in Taurus, which will peak tomorrow. So we have the sun and the moon in Taurus. We also have Mercury in Taurus, and Mercury is going to be conjunct this new moon. We've also had Ceres in Taurus. And so I think with all that Taurus energy, right? Because I'm looking at the outer planet configurations, and I did a little update on that the other day. But the outer planet configurations, this is a once in a lifetime, once in a millennia type of deal, right? That Neptune and Aries is in a sextile to Uranus and Gemini and Pluto and Aquarius. Uranus and Gemini and Pluto and Aquarius are trine. These will become exact in the summer. But when the outer planets are in such a harmonious flowing configuration, things tend to flow more easily. It opens up this window for like immense change because there's no oppositions, there's no squares, there's no tension, right? And they're all in air and fire signs, which is fast-paced movement. It just feels big. It feels intense. It feels fiery. It feels electric. It can feel overstimulation could be the best word for it. So I think with all this Taurus energy right now, and again, I'll say this for the next 2 years, we have to learn how to get into the body. because the way that the planets are working right now and the way they're going to continue to work is we've got to deal with the body. And so in many ways, what I'm seeing is the outer planets are in this like hyper acceleration configuration right now, right? We just came off the back of 7 planets in Aries, okay? Diabolical. We're about to move into Gemini season. Okay, remember Gemini is an air sign, very, very fast paced, ruled by Mercury, who is the fastest moving planet in the solar system. So when we enter Gemini season and these planets start transiting through Gemini, they're all going to meet up with Uranus. And so suddenly it's like boom, 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 boom. We can't, it's overstimulating. It's overwhelming. There's almost too much happening and there's too much energy, right? Now, Jupiter is also going to move out of Cancer and go into Leo at the end of June. Okay, so all of a sudden you have the big girl Jupiter is moving into Leo, another fire sign. So there is going to be this theme where there's a lot of overwhelm and overstimulation, a lot of activity, a lot of energy movement, a lot of big things happening constantly. And we are going to have to really work on getting into the body, because what's going to happen is the body is trying to keep up with the consciousness, and the consciousness is moving fast. Neptune in Aries. Now, thank God we do have Saturn in Aries who is tempering this a bit, but the consciousness is moving faster than the bodies. The timelines are moving faster than the bodies. I will also do a whole nother video about that in terms of first contact summer and how I'm seeing the sliding scale of timelines. I'm seeing this merge horizontally, us merging with the future selves at a very rapid rate, the future timelines bleeding into the now at a very rapid rate. So the body's trying to keep up, okay? And I think that that is what we are experiencing, is that you can't escape the body, right? The body holds the memories. The body holds the traumas. The body holds the wounds. The body holds the density. And so we have to remember that the body is trying to keep up with the energy. And so that eventually we will get to the point where the body can adjust very, very quickly, right? That's when we start really getting into more of the light body, right? Where it is adaptable and flexible. We can process at a faster rate. We can transmute at a faster rate, right? We can heal at a faster rate. But we're in that transition process. And again, I do think with Chiron moving into Taurus, that will also be a conversation, right? But if you're feeling that way, I think we've just got to roll with it, right? I think we're having a momentary pause where, remember, Taurus, if anything, Taurus loves a good rest. Taurus lies between two of the fastest moving signs in the zodiac, okay? Aries and Gemini. Taurus lies in the middle of those. Taurus is the rest, the pause, the exhale, the moment of just being and enjoying before you're off to the races again in Gemini. So I think if you're feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, you're feeling depressed, you're feeling heavy, this is just a moment of that. I think the body's trying to integrate. And we are moving into that new moon in Taurus tomorrow, which I did do an update about that. And we will talk about that this weekend in the Cosmic Human Seminar. We're going to be talking about that new moon in Taurus. It is a beautiful day for planting seeds. It is a beautiful day for rejuvenation, reflection, just allowing. It's the 7 of Pentacles. And it happens to be actually the decan that this new moon is happening in does relate to the 7 of Pentacles in the tarot. It's about planting the seeds and being patient and being present and allowing those seeds to blossom. It's not a time where we have to force a lot of things, but we are making moves, okay? But there's a couple other things going on that I wanted to talk about. So that new moon in Taurus, this is a moment of that. We're planting seeds, we're rejuvenating, we're coming back to center. We're re-anchoring in the body, right? Before we race ahead again. I think we're going to go through this process many times over the next 1 to 2 years, especially when we get to the fall and we have a Venus retrograde in Scorpio. that is going to be a huge integration time. But some other things that have been going on. So we have had Mars conjunct Chiron for like the last 5 days. Now, Mars is preparing to move into Taurus on Monday, which would be, I think, the 18th. But Mars has been meeting up in the critical degrees of Aries and joining exactly with Chiron today and tomorrow before he moves on into Taurus. And this is painful. Like, Mars is this warrior energy. And again, we can have a whole conversation about whether it's masculine or feminine. It doesn't matter. It is the warrior energy. It is the I am and the I do. Mars in Aries needs to fucking move. It needs to feel like there are things moving forward. There's momentum. There's action. There's initiative. Things are happening. Okay, Mars in Aries is not a passive transit. But when it meets up with Chiron, and again, we've been dealing with Chiron for 8 years, and Chiron's at the critical degrees again, which it has been on and off with retrogrades. It's like a moment of this final healing where there's a lot of deeply buried anger, rage, and it can be from many different things, right? And the moon was also at the critical degrees of Aries yesterday, sandwiched in between Mars and Chiron. So it was kind of this moment of like frustration, anger, irritation, right? Of like, why are things not moving forward? Or it could have been frustration of like, why do I feel exhausted? Like, I'm tired of feeling exhausted. I'm tired of not feeling vitality and aliveness, right? Also because of Mars in Aries, right? That warrior energy wants to defend its territory. So it could also be like, you know, this anger and rage of almost like, why is it that every time we seem to be making progress and moving forward and things are aligning and things are going well, all of a sudden there's a fucking wrench in it. All of a sudden there's someone who wants to come in and interfere with it or take it or fuck it up, right? It's like this, it's this anger. It's this frustration of like, why can we not do what we want to do? Why is there always interference? Why is there limitations? Why are there blockages, right? And so this could come out many different ways. Again, wherever this was landing for you in your chart, this could come out in conflicts in relationships. This could have come out as a deep inner frustration, right? This could have come out through the body. Like, I was having breakouts of hives, which was really weird. My skin was super itchy. I was like breaking out in hives and almost like a rash because this Mars Aries conjunction and the Chiron, I think just it needed a way to come out. And I didn't feel angry, so it was just going to come out through the skin, right? This is a deeply healing moment. And that's why I'm saying, if you are feeling it this weekend and have been this week, the exhaustion, the frustration, maybe anger, maybe rage, maybe just feeling so done with like whatever it is, this is the culmination. And I think Mars and Chiron being conjunct under this new moon is like slightly poetic because we're planting the new seeds, right? And so I think whatever was living within us, remember, since that full moon in Scorpio, a lot of what we've been processing, transmuting, moving through is extremely somatic. And when I say somatic, I mean that it lives in both the body and the psyche. That to me is what psychology is. You know, that's where the term psyche comes from. Psyche happens to be one of my favorite asteroids ever. But psyche and psychology is a mix between the body and the mind, you know, the brain, right? It is a mix between what lives in the body physically, biologically, right? In the DNA, in the cells, in the skin, in the bones, in the organs, and also what lives within us on an emotional and mental level. That is somatic, right? And so I think a lot of what's been coming through for us is this somatic release. It's coming in strange ways, but it has to come out because we need to be completely clear, right, Mars in Aries, critical degree under this new moon. We need to be completely clear about what seeds we want to plant, how we want to move forward, and what the direction is going to be. And so I think whatever has been purging and coming out, especially if anything really came through this Mars Chiron conjunction, it needed to be cleared, because the way we move forward now is going to be hugely important. So we have to make sure that our actions and our intentions are in line with where we actually want to go, right? And so it's going to be a moment of clarity, but it's also, again, a moment of really setting the intentions for what direction do I want to go? How do I want to move forward? Who do I want to be? Right? And so this is where a lot of the future self energy is coming in of like, I think that there's a deeper sense of like, we know who we are, right? And that's been the Chiron and Aries transit for 8 years. We know who we are on an essence level, but we also know that there's a person we want to be inside the human experience. We want to take the core of who we are, the soul, and we want to integrate that into the human vessel. And we want to be the future self who is healed, integrated, anchored, rooted, self-secure, self-loving, right? We want to be that. And with that comes an entirely new direction and mission and journey, because a lot of the old journey was based on the unhealed selves. But it was exactly as it was supposed to be. We had to do it that way. We couldn't get here if we didn't go through that journey, right? And so this is really a moment, I think, of just pure integration. Now, the other thing that is going on and is going to be going on for the next few weeks now that I did want to talk about was, as soon as Uranus went into Gemini, he began squaring the nodes. Okay, so when he moved into Gemini, the north node was at 6 degrees Pisces. The south node was at 7 degrees Virgo. Okay, so those are all mutable signs. So they entered a T-square. The 6-degree orb of the square is a little loose, but now it's getting tighter because Uranus is about to enter the 1st degree of Gemini. The nodes are now at 5 degrees of Gemini. Okay, because the nodes move backwards. So they are moving tighter and tighter into an exact T-square. Okay, that's so the T, when there's one planet, that's Uranus, is squaring both nodes, and the nodes, of course, are in opposition. So this T-square is going to become exact on June 12th, around that date. And this is another thing that I'm really picking up on, because again, Uranus is disruptive, and sometimes disruption is the best thing, and sometimes it feels overwhelming. And especially, I've been saying this, I talked about it last year, that when Uranus would move into Gemini, we would need to be managing our energy, our nervous system, and our stimulation levels. Because one of the things with Uranus and Gemini, and for any of you who have major Gemini placement will totally understand this. I have my Mars in Gemini, 8th house. So I do have kind of a insatiable urge for stimulation. Most of the time that goes into, I like to do 100 things at one time. That's just kind of my style. I love to research. I love to learn. I love to read. I love to share content. Like I need to feel stimulated by life. And so that can also, though, be a negative. Again, for those of you with major Gemini placements, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes we crave so much stimulation and then we overdo it, and then we become overstimulated and overwhelmed and totally burnt out because we're just doing way too many things at once. We are thinking about too many things at once, and it's just too much, right? The other negative of it is that, especially Mars and Geminis, we get bored very, very easily. It's just the way it is. Like, I've gotten a lot better at this throughout life, of course, like always working with my chart, always trying to master it. And I definitely have benefited from the art of discipline and consistency. Thank you to my Saturn and Moon in Capricorn. The more consistent and disciplined and structured I am, the more that my stimulation can be channeled into things that I actually follow through with. I complete them, I finish them, right? Because sometimes when you get overstimulated or you get bored too easily, you start a bunch of things and you don't finish any of it, right? Or you have all these ideas, but nothing gets actioned upon. And that is a shadow that's coming about with Uranus and Gemini. Everyone's feeling this stimulating, restless energy. The problem is two things. One, if you have no outlets for this, it's going to fry the nervous system. So if you have no outlets at all, meaning like hobbies, interests, right? Gemini likes to tinker. That's like the best way I can describe it. Like Gemini likes to tinker around. They like to read books. They like to watch videos. They like to research things. They like to learn. They like to socialize. They like to talk to people, right? They enjoy reading, writing, like anything that's a communicative kind of outlet, right? But they also like hobbies, tinkering around with things where it's just for the enjoyment of it. It's just for the fun of it. It's just because sometimes you don't just want to sit and be all the time. You want to do things. You want to do things that are fun and whimsical and just like artsy and craftsy. That's very Gemini. So if you have no outlets, okay, so you're not directing this energy in any way, your nervous system is going to start getting fried. On the other hand, if you're more like myself, if you're trying to do too many things at one time and you're burning the nervous system, either way you cut it, we need to focus on the nervous system, okay? And this is especially vital over the next couple of weeks as Uranus is going to move closer and closer to a direct square with both the nodes. And don't forget, the South Node in Virgo, right, has to do with how we, I think Virgo, I would say, is more about preventative health, right? It's not so much like once you are super sick, right? Or you have a pain or an illness or disease or whatever, and then you have to really go through like the healing process of it. I would even say Scorpio might have an influence there, but Virgo is more preventative health, right? It's the things you do every day to care for yourself so that you don't get sick, so that your body feels good, so that you're functioning at your optimal level, right? It's the little routines and tasks that we do every day that prevent our life from becoming unmanageable, right? So Virgo is very like preventative in that way. Okay, so it's like, if you let the laundry build up, if you don't wash your dishes, if you don't go grocery shopping, if you never clean your house, you will get to the point very quickly where your life is unmanageable, right? Because now everything's been let go and built up and you can't keep up with it. So Virgo is the little things we do every day to keep life efficient, right? It's the supplements that maybe you're guided to take, right? To sustain your wellness, right? Again, it's preventative health or maintenance health. It's maybe the little exercises that you do, like going for a walk, or maybe you enjoy yoga or hiking or boxing, whatever it might be, right? It's the conscious eating every day of having that balance in life where it's like, hey, I want to eat the chocolate cake. Absolutely. I should also maybe have some vegetables tomorrow. It's the balance of life of consciously being like, what am I doing with my body? What am I doing with my routines? How am I structuring my life? Now, when Uranus is squaring that, again, I think this is a lot of nervous system deregulation. And so we're going to find that especially over the next couple of weeks, but again, that leads us right into Chiron and Taurus. I just have this feeling that we are going to really need to focus on our health and wellness on a daily basis. This can't be like, oh, once I have symptoms, once I don't feel good, right? Once my body's not functioning the way it used to, now I'm going to do all these things to help it. It's got to become a way of life. And again, it's also squaring the North Node in Pisces, okay? Spiritual health, spiritual hygiene. That is also needs to be part of our daily routine. The three of them. Now, mutable T-squares are not my favorite. They're not bad. They're just slightly chaotic because mutable energy, by its very nature, is mutable. It mutates, and you don't quite know what it's going to mutate into, okay? So with a mutable T-square, you tend to get a little bit of chaos. You tend to get a little bit of dysregulation. Things can flow really seamlessly, which is what I do love about mutable signs, okay? So this T-square does have the potential over the next couple of weeks to kind of guide us into the right flow, if that makes sense. So Uranus and Gemini, this is about our mental flow, okay? Mentally, how are we flowing, right? Are we overthinking, overanalyzing? Are we getting stuck in thoughts? Are we mentally blocked? Because sometimes that happens too. Like we're disconnected in a way, and there's so many there's so many downloads in the quantum field right now. There's so many ideas and epiphanies and revelations available in the quantum field right now. So if you also feel like mentally numb, mentally dead, like nothing's really stimulating up here, that can also be a block, right? We want to have a seamless flow. South Node in Virgo. How is our physical body flowing? How is our physical life flowing, right? Our day-to-day. North Node in Pisces, how is our spiritual energy flowing? Our emotions and our intuition and our consciousness. If these can flow together, we can make some magic happen, okay? But again, with that Uranus square, it's going to show us where we're not flowing, where the river is blocked, something isn't flowing, where we're dysregulated, right? Where the nervous system is not being regulated properly. It's going to show us whatever it needs to show us in terms of what is not working. Now, the other thing that's interesting about this T-square is because if these were just planets, right, that were squaring off with Uranus, I would say we could look at specific areas of life or specific parts of our chart, right, to kind of see where this is highlighting. But the thing about the nodes is that they're not planets. They are mathematical positions. And so the nodes are known as the nodes of fate, right? And so there's also this sense and feeling that as this T-square becomes tighter and tighter, again, exact on June 12th, in that arena of those days, and then a week later, Chiron enters Taurus, that fate is at play right now. And with Uranus, there's no controlling it. You can't prepare for it. You can't control it. The fates are at play. And the fates are an interesting concept as well. And this goes back to, kind of mythology, ancient mythology, and every kind of ancient mythology, that's a lot of that's weaved into astrology, right? Like Greek, Roman, Celtic, even Asian mythology, right? There's always a concept of like the feminine fates, the oracles, right? The wisdom keepers, right? The priestesses. So in every kind of culture, mythology, etc., there's always a kind of concept around that, right? And that's what this T-square is giving me. It is like the fates, and it's very feminine in nature. I feel, and there's an oracle sense to it. It's like whatever is going to unfold with this T-square, again, it's not about controlling it, and it's not about trying to figure it out, and it's not about preparing for it and any of that. It's written in the stars. Now, all that we can do is prepare our bodies, and that is where I feel what we've been feeling the last week is a divine integration. Our bodies are catching up to our consciousness and they are catching up to the timelines. And so just have some grace with yourself. I had to really have a moment with myself because I get very, I don't know what the word is, like frustrated. Normally my frustration is internal. It's not usually directed externally. That's a rare occasion when it is. That's kind of a whole different ballgame. But most of my frustrations or anger is usually about myself, and I can get really frustrated when I feel like, well, why am I so tired? Why am I not keeping up with my normal pace? Why am I not like completing all the things that I need to complete and all the ideas that I have? And sometimes I have to, my body forces me, and the cosmos force me to stop, to take a moment. And I have to remember that, especially over the next couple of years while we have all this like crazy fire and air energy, is that rest is not bad. Rest is not something that is a block. We have to rest to integrate, just as we have to move forward and take action and take initiative. Like both are essential. And so if we don't allow the integration to occur, or maybe, we're overthinking it, maybe trying to figure out why are we feeling like that, I think we just have to let it happen. We just have to let it happen. But again, I would say we should really be taking care of our physical, emotional, and spiritual and mental health over the next couple of weeks. But honestly, past that, this needs to continue. I think this T-square is also going to show us how we can really like embody this on a daily basis, that this becomes part of the new human experience, right? Like that a priority of being a human, a cosmic human, is that our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health and wellness is part of life, that it is essential to life. It is not something we try to schedule in and fit in on the weekends, right? It's not something we should let go, right? And again, preventative care. We're not trying to get to the point where we're falling apart and then we've got to do extra work to get ourselves back to, homeostasis. We're trying to do preventative care. We're trying to do maintenance care, but this needs to become a part of our daily life because shit's going to be wild. Okay. Shit is going to be wild. And if our nervous systems and our emotions and our bodies cannot integrate fast enough, this is where we're going to get the setbacks, because the nervous system freaks out, the body starts to show symptoms, we spiral mentally, we spiral emotionally, and then we have to play catch up again. So we're trying to integrate this now. And just as a little, also maybe that this will be helpful, is just to understand the gene keys that the outer planets are in right now. Because again, this outer planet configuration is just, it's so auspicious. But it gives us a lot of insight, right? So first of all, Pluto in Aquarius is retrograde now. He will be retrograde until October in Gene Key 41. Gene Key 41, I talked about this in the Pluto retrograde video if you want to watch that fully. And that is in the Ring of Origin. It's a unique gene key. This is the only gene key with its own codon ring. It is the Ring of Origin. The shadow is fantasy. And the gift, what is the gift? Anticipation. And so we need to move out of just fantasizing about the future, projecting onto the future, right? But not ever actually aligning with it, not ever actually building that future vision. And the gift of anticipation is when we can feel the future timelines coming in, we start taking action, right, towards aligning that timeline. We start aligning ourselves internally, our internal geometric structure and architecture to align with that future self and that future timeline. So we're actually bridging. We're actually bridging and co-creating the future rather than just fantasizing and thinking about it. So that's where Pluto is. And Pluto's going to be in this gene key for some years because he's a slow guy. Okay. Now, Neptune in Aries has just recently moved into Gene Key 17. Neptune, because of retrograde back and forth in the late degrees of Pisces, hung out in Gene Key 25 for like ever. And that was the Gene Key of unconditional love. Now Neptune is in Gene Key 17. Again, will be there for probably like 2 years. And Gene Key 17 is the shadow of opinion. And it carries the shadow of like needing to be right, thinking you know everything, having opinions and judgments on every single thing. And instead, we have to move into the gift of what is called farsightedness. And the Siddhi, I believe, is like precognition. And so it's about basically getting out of the mind, getting out of what you think you know, right? And always needing to be right and always needing to prove things and always needing to judge everything around you externally. And instead, the gift, right, of farsightedness is where we start to pick up on patterns and we start to see, again, the future. We start to sense what is actually coming in, what this pattern and this timeline is showing. And this is where you get the Oracle gift. It's Gene Key 17. For any of you that have this is one of my mains. And so it's when we get out of this linear, logical, analytical, dogmatic mind, and we become open to receiving the signals from what is coming, okay? Again, this links, remember, Neptune and Pluto are in a sextile. So these two are working together. Anticipation, right, is Pluto in 41. We're anticipating what is coming in from the quantum field in the future timeline. Gene Key 17, precognition. Getting the download, getting the intuition, getting the spark, sensing what is coming. And again, moving towards that. Now, this is, again, Neptune will be sextiling Uranus in Gemini, and Pluto is trining Uranus in Gemini, who is in Gene Key 20. Now, Gene Key 20 carries the shadow of superficiality. And the gift, oh God, I forget the gift name. I'll have to look back at it. I forget the gift name now, but the whole point of Gene Key, it's presence. So Gene Key 20 is all about that, basically the shadow of what Richard Rudd calls superficiality, is where we're just busybodies. We're just doing a ton of shit that actually has no meaning. We're basically living in the surface level of life, and we're just doing trivial shit, surface level shit, right? And we're just running around like little busy bees, little ants. He actually compares us to ants in this shadow. And that there's no real meaning to what we're doing. There's no presence in it. We are just doing for the sake of doing. So this is where, again, they've kind of programmed us where they wanted humanity to just be so busy and caught up with the most trivial things that we don't have the time or the energy to truly engage in what matters, right? Because we're too busy running around, like having to do all these things and go to work and run to the grocery store and go to the post office and cut our lawn. And, we're so busy. Now, of course, the gift here, right, of presence doesn't mean you do nothing, right? But it means that we are out of the mind and into the heart, and we are present in the moment. So we might be doing a lot of things as well, but there is meaning in them. We are putting actual intention into the things we're doing. We are present in the moment of now, allowing, right, the future timeline to come in. We are getting those precognitions. We're getting those downloads, those spidey senses. We're getting that intuition, and we're actually doing things that are aligning us with that future and not just being basically distracted. Right? We're not just being distracted by the busyness of the world and our lives, but we're actually engaging in every moment with aligning with that future. You can see by these gene keys, right? And the energy that is happening between these, it tells us everything we need to know, right? We are literally moving into the future at a very rapid rate. We are creating the future. We're anticipating the future. We're co-creating the future. And we're present with all of this enough to allow for those spontaneous miracles, those fates to align. And so this is why I wanted to do this update, because it feels very bizarre right now. It feels just, it's just a lot. And so I wanted to do this to just say, just keep moving through it. It's not a negative thing. This is a huge integration moment, but this configuration, the T-square between Uranus and the nodes, all of this is setting us up for, again, first contact summer. I think that this is a summer of the most intense quantum leaps that we've ever had, like in this human experience ever. And it makes sense, because the more that I looked at the 2026 transits, and I've been eyeing, and I'll keep just slightly hinting at the fall with that Venus retrograde in Scorpio, that to me signals such a deep integration period, that the only reason the cosmos would be setting us up for such an intensive resurrective integration period in the fall is if the summer we quite literally quantum leaped into another dimension, to another world, where we needed to actually take that time then for, again, the body and the emotions and everything to catch up. So that's your cosmic weather update. And so for those of you joining in the seminar this weekend, I will see you then. And of course, for those of you that also would like to join the June astrology gathering, that's going to be on May 31st, I believe. You can sign up for that. And we're going to be talking very deeply about Chiron in Taurus and Jupiter in Leo. June is the kickoff of the first contact summer. So this is going to be a big month for us. So love you guys. Happy new moon in Taurus. And I'll be back soon with some more updates.